Uh, I'm so excited because a friend, an incredible musician, a lover of Jesus and Whitney Houston is here on the show today. Madison Watkins, welcome to the Girl Gang podcast.
Hi, I'm so honored to be here. I have literally, like me and Amanda just talked about, we've just been trying to get this to happen for so long. In Dallas, you guys are my people. Woo! I love Dallas people.
I don't know a person who doesn't love visiting or coming to Dallas.
And the people of Dallas, I feel like you guys, I don't know. It's like a little taste of the South. It's a little taste of the city.
Yep.
You guys are great.
It's so fun. So you have so much going on and I want to get into your story and things like that. But I think I would be remiss if we didn't kind of address this. We just talked about it just a moment ago before we hit record. There's a lot going on in the world right now. And so I just want to acknowledge that for whatever it's worth. I think when stuff like this happens in the world with Ukraine and things like that, you feel like, what do I do? Like you feel all of the emotions and you want to help. And I think what a thing you were saying a moment ago is like, check on your friends, check on your family. You never know like who has family over there. And so I think like you and I probably both agree. We just kind of want to acknowledge that today and say that or for me, I know I'm praying for people over there. And again, it feels weird. And it feels like, what do we do? I can't do anything.
And I also feel like sometimes it makes like even a podcast or a song release or whatever it is feel, I don't know if you feel like this, but it kind of feels like, should I do this right now? Because I don't want to take the attention away from a really big situation when, like we're just living our very comfortable lives in America. And I was telling Amanda, like my best friend is from Ukraine. She was adopted from there when she was 3 years old. Her biological dad and her sister and her family's over there. And so Amanda just kind of asked me like, how are you? Which I think is really kind because I do these press interviews and stuff and, they just kind of want to know stuff about me and they don't really care how I'm doing necessarily. So,
and we're also like kind of friends already. So
yes, we're social media. We are social media friends. Like we're the definition of social media friends.
One day I'm going to be able to hug you in person.
Yes. But it meant a lot because this week just it's been really heavy. And I love that she addressed it because if there's anybody out there that is hurting, whether it's with the Ukraine situation, you have family there or just in your daily lives, like everything is valid and it's hard right now. So our world is tough.
It's super hard. And here as we're like relaunching our podcast right now because I was just bored. I was just doing what everybody else was doing and interviewing female founders and blah, blah, blah. And so as I kind of took a pause and a lot of people in the podcast world would be like, don't pause your podcast. Like, that's a bad idea. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I need to do this for myself. And I want to bring as much honesty as possible to the table with these conversations, whether they reach 1 million people or 100 people. That's my goal. And so I think approaching that and like you are probably the epitome of that, in my opinion, of like someone who's just like unapologetically themselves. So I think we acknowledge that, we hear that and know this community is like a safe space for that. And anyway, well, I do want to keep talking about what's going on with you and get into your story and just shed some light on things and your opinion on stuff. But before we move on, you said, do I feel like, should I be doing this? Like, should we keep going and like release this thing? I had the same feelings this week. Like we're relaunching our podcast. I launched a course this week for my personal brand. I had a massive media feature come out yesterday and I felt like kind of not embarrassed is not the word, but really selfish.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
just still doing my own stuff, there's this like catch 22 of like, the show must go on, business has got to keep rolling, like this is what I do, and then it's weird. Yeah, so I feel the same way. Yeah, it's interesting. So let's dive in. Okay, I think this is a really fun conversation we're gonna have today. Tell us, first of all, you are from what my husband would claim is God's country.
Really?
He's from Arkansas. So,
Oh, what part of Arkansas is he from?
he grew up in Batesville, Arkansas.
Yes.
So, small town boy, lived on a chicken farm for a good chunk of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm from Arkansas. I'm from Fayetteville, Arkansas. I was actually born in Conway, Arkansas. So I was born.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was born in a smaller town as well, and then we moved when I was a little bit older to Fayetteville, but I'm originally from Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yep, it is God's country. I miss it so much.
I know you do.
Miss it. I miss my family every day. I miss it there, but I can't do my career in Arkansas.
I know. That's just not, how it works. I know. So we met in college at Ouachita Baptist University. That's why we went to school. And he was from Batesville. And then we got married after school and stayed in Arkansas for a couple of years. Then when we moved here and I started my company, at some point he was like, would you ever move back to Arkansas? I was like, absolutely. He was like, could you take your business there? I was like, oh, no. It would not work. I don't think it would work. But yeah, it's like, I miss it too. I love, it's just gorgeous. It's slower.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously we have so much family there on his side of the family, but I know I love it. So let's talk about you. You grew up in Arkansas. Obviously you've been singing your whole life, and growing up, in church and things like that. What was your first moment of like, I am going to do this for the rest of my life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like there's a couple of those moments, but I like the first that really come to mind are number one, I really feel like when I was around like 10 years old, and when I tell people this sometimes, like, I'm sure people are like, what? Like, does that really happen? Or, whatever. But I really felt like God told me that this is what I was going to do. And it was like a moment when I was like in my room, literally listening to a Whitney Houston song. A lot of people don't know this part of why I love Whitney Houston, because they just think that I'm obsessed with her because she's amazing.
Yeah.
Which she is.
Sounds like, yeah.
But like, it was this moment where I was listening to her voice, and then it was just like something came over me of like, this is going to be you one day, you're going to do that. And so that was the first. And then I think like in the physical realm, I think that I sang at this church musical. I got a solo, and just like all the other kids, everybody had a solo.
Everybody got a solo.
Right. It wasn't just me. I wasn't special, but I remember I walked up there and I sang my solo, and then all the parents in the auditorium gave me a standing ovation. And they only did that for me. And so my parents were like looking up, and then like, what's going on?
They didn't stand up too?
Yeah, they did. They were just like, like they were like confused because they gave me a standing ovation. And I remember singing and looking out, and I'm like, oh, I think like it was that moment of like, I think something's different about this, like
about you.
Something's different about this voice that I have. And so that was a moment where I was like, oh my goodness. And people were crying, and it was just like, it was like an emotional experience.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling just like, I mean, I'm so young, but I'm creating this emotion in these adults. Like, this is so much bigger than myself. Even I look back and I see that that's how I felt. I probably didn't know that in the moment being so young, but I felt like, oh, wow, this is bigger than me. And from that day on, I feel like just through the entire journey of my career and everything that God has put in front of me and put me through, like it has just been that same like constant, this is your calling, this is your anointing on your life. Your voice is bigger than you in all sense of the word.
Yeah.
And you just get to steward it, well. And so that's kind of been the journey so far.
Yeah. I love it. It's funny. I didn't even think about bringing this up for today, but I don't know if you know this, but my background is music. I was a music teacher. I've been a vocalist since I was like 5, the whole 9 yards, led worship, blah, blah. And I thought like, oh, I want to be the next Carrie Job. I want to be,
Oh,
that's like what I wanted to do. And I remember this moment, and I still think that's a huge part of who I am as a person. I think like leading worship is like a very special thing to me still. And I remember this moment in college when it was me and I had this like old cheap blue acoustic guitar, and I was leading worship at this small church in Arkansas. And I got off stage and we were like wrapping up or something, and this old man came up and he said, because I'm like 5'4", and he was like, I just never thought such a big voice would come out of such a small girl. I was
yes.
like, and that's what I think. I'm not that you're like small, but like, it's like sometimes you see a voice come out of someone.
I'm actually shorter than you.
How tall are you?
Everyone thinks I'm tall.
You wear heels sometimes.
I wear
So
heels every single day of my life. I'm 5'3".
love it. So
Yes.
funny. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought of that story and I was like, that is funny.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you have been doing this forever, and and especially, and I want to get into like your faith too, because that's a big part of who I am. Though, this podcast is not like a faith-based podcast. A lot of people who know me know that that's a big part of my story too. But growing up, like, and doing all of these things and then deciding to move to LA and all of that stuff, that has to have challenged you with your faith. So I just kind of want to hear, how has that journey been in the
I think it cut out, Amanda.
Oh.
Say that one more time.
So how is, being a believer and being in the music world and on social media and doing all of these things and living in LA, how has that been for you?
Yeah, I think that it has been the best thing that could ever happen to me, moving out of my comfort zone and into probably the darkest industry in the world. I think for me, it's grown my faith in ways that would never, ever happen if I would have, just continued my life in Arkansas. And I'm so grateful for my foundation and how I grew up, and that I had parents that loved God and they really, instilled that into me. But I don't think I really was as bold as I am now until I moved into Los Angeles. Because 99% of the time I'm in rooms with people that don't care about God, or they don't believe in God. They don't have any type of relationship with Jesus. Like
Yeah.
to them, it's actually kind of like dumb or like funny. Like
Yeah, sure.
it's not like in the South, I feel like it's like everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people say like that they're believers or they're Christians. And it's kind of like a cultural cool thing to do, at least where I
Yep.
grew up. And it is not that way in LA. If anything, it's like, what? Like, you really
I
believe
don't get
that?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, but what's so cool is that's why God has called me here. He's called me to be the light in the darkness. And whether that's on national television, whether that's in the studio, whether that's at a Lakers game, whatever, like I am called to be a light in the darkness and to tell people about him. And I'm not ashamed, like, because if the best thing ever happened to you, like you're going to tell everybody. Like if you went on an amazing trip, if you found the best makeup product, whatever it is, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is it. Or like you have a
Yeah.
podcast, or like, or my next single's coming out, whatever. You're like, you're shouting it from the rooftop, right? You're
Yeah.
so excited about it. And that's how I feel about Jesus. Like he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And so why would I be scared of that? Why would I be ashamed of that? If anything, I'm going to tell everyone around me, regardless if they believe it or not. But I understand that's really hard.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sitting here saying like, I'm an expert at it. There's so many times where I'm fearful, or so many times where I feel like, okay, here we go. Like, when I'm in a situation and somebody says like, I don't really know the meaning of life, then God's like, I just gave you a layup,
Ding
dunk
dong.
it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dunk it, ding dong. Dunk it in there. So
Yeah.
it's definitely not easy, but I honestly feel honored that, number one, like, I have this gift that God's given me that I get to use. But on top of that, getting to spread like the message of how good he is and how loving he is to people we're all searching for that, whether or not we know it.
Yeah.
And if you're on here today and you've never experienced like a relationship with God, like, I just encourage you to explore it. And if you have a friend that knows him or talks about him, like, just explore it, because especially with where our world is at right now, if we don't have hope and we don't have a truth to look to, I don't know about y'all, but I don't, I can't do that. Like,
Mm-mm.
so
Can't live like that.
no, and I've been very, very depressed, but I've had Jesus in my life. And if I was depressed and didn't, I don't know if I would be here today,
Yeah.
honestly.
I would agree with that 100%
Mhm.
actually. Um, I remember when you were on American Idol and you got to sing and meet Tori Kelly.
Yes.
And I remember y'all's interview, first of all, just crumbled the house down. It was so good. It gives me chills every time I listen to it.
Aw.
But I remember you guys sitting in like the courtyard or something and having that little time together, and like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, how special that was. And
Mhm.
seeing someone else in your industry being or with the same goals as you, like,
Mhm.
how was that?
Yeah, I mean, as you saw in the clip, if anybody goes and watches it, I could not keep it together. I was like, I cried. So that interview was actually like
I would
30
have too.
minutes long. Yeah. The interview was like 30 minutes long, but they cut it down to like 2 minutes or whatever. But I could not stop crying. Like, and from me, I've had the opportunity of meeting celebrities, working with celebrities, working with big singers that I really looked up to. But there was something different about Tori Kelly, and that is that she really was the first person to be unashamed in who she was and her faith in the music industry. And
Yeah.
she's not even considered a Christian artist. I mean, now she came out with the gospel album, so people
Right.
are like, well, she's a Christian artist, but she's not. She's a pop artist,
Yeah.
And so it was super emotional for me because you feel so alone in the
Yeah.
music industry as a woman. Because usually, like, the music industry with women, it's all about like how, like, just, it's
Sexy
all
can
like,
we make you?
how sexy that's exactly what it is, Amanda. It's like, how sexy can we make you? How little clothing can you wear for this, whatever. And so to have somebody that is a few years older than you, that's doing it, that's thriving, it was overwhelming. And
Yeah.
now she and I, we DM like all the time.
I love
So
it.
it's so fun because um I feel like she's kind of in my life now, and
Mhm.
it's so cool.
That's so
Hopefully
special.
we'll do a song together one day.
Oh, that's definitely happening. Like, I will put that out there right now.
We're gonna say that today so that when it happens, we can go back and be like, roll the tape.
Roll the tape, 2022. Uh, holy crap. Do you ever have moments where you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, what am I doing? What,
Yes.
what is my life right now?
All the time. Like, all the time.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I recently got to sing at my first NFL like national anthem.
It was
And
the 49ers, right?
yes, it
Yeah.
was the 49ers. And I was really just like, before I, went on, I don't, I kind of get in this zone before I do anything. And it's kind of, I think, to make me not nervous, but I'm very locked in. I'm like, okay, this is like, I kind of convinced myself nothing is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then I walked up on that stage and looked up, and there was like 90,000 people or something. And it hit me right before I started singing. I was like, oh, I'm doing
Oh,
this right now.
but
And
you did great.
thank you. But it is crazy. Like you do have those moments and they come, you can't control when those are going to come. Right. So
Yeah.
it just hits you. You just got to roll with it.
Yep. Oh man. I think that's something that people who have never had like live performance experience probably won't ever understand, and that I don't know. It's like a fun thing. It's like a fun game to me, of like trying to not make yourself nervous. Like I hear about people who like have a corporate job and they're like, I gotta make this presentation today. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, no, I'm like super nervous. Like I get stage fright. And I don't know. That sounds like
Yeah.
weird, but
I mean, I feel like every single person's lane is different.
Mhm.
So I don't know, it's valid for everyone because if you're
Yeah.
talking in front of 10 people or singing in front of 90,000, I think we all get nervous, and
Yeah.
it's because we at the end of the day, I think it's because we want to do well and we care what other people think. And, there's a lot of different factors, but I get that because sometimes like I get more nervous speaking in an interview like this or singing in front
Really.
of 10 people
Mhm.
than singing in front of 90,000. Like it's
I get that.
crazy because people just can stare at you and they're right there. They're looking at you, you know?
Yes. Yeah. No, I definitely get that. I remember, oh my gosh, in college we would have to do these like um recitals as practice in front of our peers if you were like a vocal major.
Mhm.
And it was the most dreaded thing we all could do. But yet,
Mm.
if we did a performance in front of the entire campus, we were like, I got this. Like, this is fine. This is fun. Whatever. Let's go. But, ooh, your class of 12 people, and then you have to
Right.
perform all of your stuff, like classical, whatever. It was like, I'd rather not. Like, let's just not.
Okay, so what is the thing you guys have at Washita? The big
Tiger Tunes.
Tiger Tunes. So I actually went to Tiger Tunes one time in my life.
When did you go?
I was
Like super little or?
I was no, I was probably like 16 or something.
Okay.
It was like probably 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like Baylor Sing, like Baylor here in Texas. Um, but it's super fun. It's so
Oh,
cheesy.
I was obsessed with it. I remember because I was dating this little guy who was from Camden, Arkansas. And he was like, listen, we're going to go to Tiger Tunes or whatever. And I drove
Classic.
down. Yeah. And I drove down from Fayetteville
Oh my
and
gosh.
went to Tiger Tunes. And I loved it. Like
Yeah.
y'all put on a great show.
Oh, it was always so much fun. Like actually this weekend is Baylor's version. And my brother's in it. And so it's like it's always fun to see
Are you
other
going to go?
people. Yes, we're leaving tomorrow to go see him, and they're like scarecrows or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But it's so fun. And it's so fun to go back and see everybody. And your friends, they had these Tiger Tunes hosts that were like the main singers, of like the whole
Yeah.
show. I mean, you would have been a host for sure.
Oh,
And so it's fun because we all just joke about how serious we took it. And like, our
mm-hmm.
friends that were hosts and you know, most of them actually never did anything with music in their life, after that. But
They were just like the comedic
yeah,
relief.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it was super fun. I don't know. I loved Wash Shot. I loved all that stuff. But so American Idol, no big deal. Did you ever think you would end up on American Idol?
Actually, I kind of did.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
I kind of when I was young, maybe not in this past year. I actually it's so funny. I was just on a podcast yesterday and it's the podcast week. I
It's
just
the
went
press
ahead.
suite.
Yeah, I just went ahead and just kept my little setup. But
Yep.
but And I was just like, it's funny because I was talking about how I was so opposed to it at first.
Mm,
And they were asking me to be on it. And I said no. And they asked me again. I said no. They asked me again. So they asked me like 3 different times. And then finally I was like, okay, fine. I'll like pray about it. So I'm not just making my own decision, you know? And then I ended up doing it. And so this
why did you
past,
say no?
I think because I had, I had things going for me that honestly, it's a blessing because they didn't work out. But I had a couple like labels interested in me and things like that. And so I was like, oh, there's so many routes to go in this
Right.
business. And even still, like I'm still gonna like going the label route, all that stuff. But it's just like it's hard. No one gives you a rule book for this, and there isn't one, and nothing makes sense. It's like nothing. It's like it just either things happen or they don't, it's
Yeah.
very up in the air. So I just didn't really want to put myself out there because I had done another reality show like 5 years earlier, and it was America's Got Talent when I was younger. And I just got destroyed on that show. Like,
Ugh.
I just didn't know who I was. And they
Yeah.
weren't like mean to me, but like I just was so vulnerable. And I cried when I got cut. And it was embarrassing, And I was like, why would I put myself in this
Why would I do that
situation?
again? Well, it's like
Yes.
your brain is like, oh, no, 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 no. That was a bad experience. We're not doing that again.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I really humbled myself, I was like, okay, like I had this feeling of I was supposed to do it. And what I was saying is um earlier is just like I thought that I didn't know what reason why I was going, but then I left being like, oh, I know exactly why. Like American Idol was not about me at all. It was about the people that I got to impact when I was there. And there's so many behind the scenes stories that I can tell you of when God just really had me on that season for specific people. And at the end of the day, I tell people, I don't think a lot of people come up to me and say, like, oh, I loved your Whitney Houston performance, or I loved your performance with Tori Kelly. They always say, I loved you on American Idol because you were everyone else's biggest cheerleader. And that really stuck out to me because, that's not why I was supporting everyone. That's really just who God made me to be and how I acted on the show. But it does show that when you care about other people and situations and like especially a competition situation that people see that, and they
Yeah.
see that rather than the girl that if I were to be like, I'm going to beat everyone here and whatever, that they wouldn't probably notice like me as much as being servant hearted. And so what I want to say with that is I'm not praising myself because that's literally all through God, because I was in a bad headspace before I went in there. I was like, I'm not doing this. But just to encourage you, if you feel like in your job or any situation that you're kind of like competing or trying to get to the top, like if you're a servant of other people, that speaks so much louder than if you are trying to hustle and be like the person that everyone looks at. And yeah, that's just something that I've learned. Humility is so attractive.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this the other day, kind of in a different regard of like the online business owner space, which is where I am all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But and I recorded a TikTok about it. I don't think I posted it yet, but there's this piece of us that we're always trying to impress someone and impress other people. And how often does that how's that working out for you? Like, how does it actually work out for you? I don't think that's the route to go. I think, there's like in corporate America, you gotta do what you gotta do to, get the promotion or whatever. But when we're just ourselves and we tell the truth, and like
Mm-hmm.
you said, we support others and we're here to serve other people, hands down, 10 times out of 10, that is what people are going to remember, talk
Mm-hmm.
about, tell other people about. So shouldn't that be like our goal? I mean, I think that's what the definition of like you know, that phrase of community over competition. Isn't that the goal? Right.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm sure you feel like that. Like you are, trying to get signed by a label or getting this next gig or whatever. Like, have you battled with that of like trying to impress people?
Oh, 1000%. I mean, I think that, like you said, we all struggle with that. And in a way, like there's some things that not everything's bad, right? And I don't think sometimes, like when I'm doing whatever, an interview, or if I'm meeting with a label or whatever, it's like it's okay to show your best cards,
Put
I think
yourself
it's
best foot forward. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's great, but it's when it like consumes you, of like
Yeah.
what does everybody here think? But it is hard. I think with social media, what I usually do is if like I have like two videos, right? And like one I look really good in, and people like guys would be like, "Oh, she looks like super good in that video." And I know I would get that attention. And then if I have this video that's like me being a goofball or whatever, I always look at the two and I'm like, I'm going to post this one
Yeah.
because why like random stranger guys or girls like thinking I'm cute, whatever, or me making somebody laugh and making them feel comfortable being themselves. Like
Yeah.
I'm always going to pick this one,
Yeah. I
and
know.
but it took me, I didn't always used to be like that.
Mm,
I wanted to impress people. I wanted people to think I was beautiful. I wanted people to think I was a good singer. And those are, I think that's the reason why God didn't allow me to have success younger. And I'm so young, like I'm 26. Like,
right.
hello, I feel like, but at the same time, I had label opportunities in front of me when I was 18. I've gone through this cycle
Yeah.
a lot of times, but I feel like because my goal was to impress people, he was like, let's just wait a little bit because I'm going to make you so confident in who you are that you don't feel like you have to impress people. You're actually going to heal people by being your true self, and it's going to bring out that in them as well. So I feel so lucky that feel like I've grown in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think it's hard for people, especially if you grew up or, I think of people that are like that and that it is all consuming and they're constantly like needing attention, especially like in the TikTok social media world. And I know that that comes from something they've experienced. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when we can just, like you said, like be ourselves and help other people be themselves. That's one of my biggest goals as a person, as a creator
Oh,
online, whatever, is like be, I mean, I usually cuss and say it, but I say like be your effing self. Like
yeah.
no one cares. Whatever. I actually made this TikTok the other day where I was like, I hate it when people are like, I'm so weird. And it's like, no, you're not. You're trying to make weird like fetch. And you're not weird. Like you're just normal. Like
Well, if you are weird, then you won't have to say that.
you're not gonna say it or you don't know.
You do.
Yeah.
If you know you're weird, you just act weird.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be like, I'm weird.
I'm so weird. Yeah. Oh man. It's like high school
That's
all over again.
hilarious. That's
Um,
hilarious.
so you put yourself out there a lot in lots of different ways. You are
Mm.
very much in the public eye, interviews, press, TV, national football game, all those things. How is it balancing like we were saying, like putting your best foot forward and all
Mm.
these things professionally and as an artist, and then you still want to show who you are and being authentic? I think that's a big question I've been hearing a lot lately is like, what's the balance? What's the
Yeah.
balance of, because you don't want to just be like, here's all my deepest, darkest secrets, but
Right.
how have you, found a balance with that, if at all? I don't know any of us
Uh,
have balance, but
so I want to clarify the question. So a
yeah.
balance between like being confident in who I am,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Just, the balance between like being a public figure right? And also trying to be yourself and
Yeah.
and be honest with people, you know, behind the scenes.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said too about like not sharing your deepest, darkest things, because I'm an open book in a lot of ways, but I will say that I have a very, very close circle that only knows certain things about me. And I think that's
Sure.
super healthy.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it goes back to where I find my identity.
Mhm.
And um, I think sometimes being a believer in Jesus, like, growing up, I would hear from in my youth group or whatever. And I love my youth group, but like sometimes I felt like I couldn't be super proud of myself or confident because that was being prideful.
Yeah.
But I think that is not it, because if anything, if you have, I feel like I always have God, like this lion behind me when I walk in the room. I should be more confident than any person, like, I mean, we all, like, I'm like, I should be so confident in who I am and the way I look and the way I sing and the way I talk. And I don't think that's cocky. I think that that is confidence, and it's good to have that confidence because the world has that confidence. So people that don't know God, they're going to walk in like that. So why am I not going to walk in like that and be on the same level and get to love on them in that way and be confident in who I am? But I think at the end of the day, it's knowing my identity. And honestly, like when I know that I'm really loved by God, and these aren't cliches, by the way, because this is like, I'm telling you, these are my lifelines.
Yeah.
And I know every day that I'm truly loved by God, like not just like, oh God, you love me. Like when I sit and I think about like where I could be without him and how he loves me so much that he's brought me here and allowed me to do what I'm doing and got me out of some of the crap that I've been in or some of the dumb decisions I've made. I'm just like, dang, I feel so honored and I feel so just humbled to be on this journey. And then with that, it comes this confidence of like, wow, I'm chosen, I'm chosen
Yeah.
to do this. Um, but then to answer the other part of the question, as far as just like how I balance like being myself and being in the public eye, I think, I mean, it goes back to that. Just when you know your identity, like I can fully be myself and be in front of a big group of people, or
Mhm.
I can be bold in my faith. And if somebody gives me a weird look or is like, that's dumb, I'm like, okay, well, that's who I am. So like, if you think
Yeah.
that's dumb, that's not my issue. I tell my friends that all the time. Like they'll come to me and be like, oh, this person's mad at me and I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm like, well, then it's not your issue.
Yeah.
Like looking at life like that, it's so freeing
Oh
because
man.
there's so many girls that have called me conceited or cocky or whatever because I have to put myself out there for my career. And because I know that that's not who I am and that I love people and that I'm doing this career to impact people,
That's where I'm getting at.
it's not
Yeah.
that's not my issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a
No,
long
no,
story
no.
short,
No, I'm not. Yeah, keep going.
yeah, and
I love
a
it.
long story short, that's not my issue. Like
Yeah.
if because I know my motives, but you're right. It is hard because self-promotion and things can come across
Yeah.
wrong
You feel like you're
sometimes.
just talking about yourself all the time, but then
Mhm.
you're like, you know, that it's your purpose. It's what you do. And also you are the brand, like you are
Yeah.
the business. So it's kind of like, what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah. And I think for me, it's a little easier maybe than just being like an influencer because my music is made for other people.
Yeah.
So it is easier because I feel like it'd be super hard if I was just an influencer. Like some of my friends are full-time influencers and it is hard. Like it is all about them all the time. And, they're always like, I want to like give back. I want to, like I want to make it about other people, but
Yeah.
it is. And I think like it's the motive of your heart. I
Yeah.
think it goes back to that. It's the motive of your heart. If you're doing it for yourself, people are going to see that and it's like
Mhm.
unattractive.
Yeah.
But if you're really doing it for other people, then people are going to follow you and
Yeah.
not just in the physical realm, like they're going to follow what you say and what you do. And it is a balance though. It's a very, very fine line.
Yeah.
And I've made mistakes. Like that's
Sure.
the cool thing about it. Like you said, is just being real and saying like, oh, like, you know, that maybe that wasn't out of the right motive. Okay, next time I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trial and error.
Trial and error. This is life. You also really, I mean, music is about people's life experiences. And so you really put some stories out there. And I'm sure you get questions and who is this about and what happened and all that kind of stuff. You know, and your music is meant to be heard and impact people, but you also get to choose how much you share about like why you wrote this song and things like that. How is that difficult?
Yes. I think one of the most difficult situations was I was in a really abusive relationship a few years ago. And after that relationship, I didn't say anything because so many different reasons. I was scared, you know, I didn't want to talk about it and then get backlash from him or whatever. He's in the public eye and he could, you know, completely ruin my reputation. And which now I'm like, do it. Like people know who I am. Say something. But yeah, it's hard to find the balance because it's like back then people knew. They're like, we know what this song is about. And we know that, you know, the situation was bad. And when I write like you cheated on me or whatever in a song, people know who that's about. So it is hard. But I think so before we started this interview, Amanda asked me, she said like, is there anything you don't want to talk about? And I said, if there is, I know how to veer it. And I think that's kind of a talent that you have to develop. And I'm sure, you know, you've seen that too, but there's been situations where if it's on TV, if it's in an interview, whatever, people have asked me questions that I didn't want to answer and I can answer them, but it doesn't I don't have to be putting all my cards out there or explaining every detail of why a relationship didn't work out. You know, I think I see that a lot. J-Lo does that so well. People ask her about her new relationship and she's like, I'm so happy. And then people are like, well, can you give us more detail? And she's like, you know, I think some things are just meant for me because my life is so in the public eye. And it's setting a boundary. You have to set a boundary because people will take from you as much as they can take until you put up a boundary. And so I definitely have healthy boundaries and what I share and what I don't share. But yeah, with writing music, it's hard because I write out my whole soul.
Yep.
And then people are like, wait, so like, who is that about? You know,
and
I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And sometimes like, so I'll be very honest with you. So I have a single coming out, Lose to Love.
Yes.
Here's my little promo for it.
No, we're going to talk about it. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, do you want to go into that?
I don't care. Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. I don't want to steal your question or whatever, but
no, go for it.
I posted a video with me and kind of he's one of my guy friends, spoiler alert, but and it was kind of like promoting the song. And I'm not dumb. Like I know people are going to be like, did you just break up with him through a song? Or like, I knew it was going to get buzz, and
especially on TikTok or whatever.
It went viral on TikTok. You know, I have people asking me like, is that your boyfriend? Yeah. All those things. And he's not my boyfriend. Actually, he's just a good friend of mine. And we just did the video, like just kind of like created a little scene and just made it fun. But for example, Lose to Love, I kind of wrote it about like a couple situations. So some of my songs too, it's like I put this situation together. So it's not like, oh, I just wrote it about this one situation. Yeah. So that's also kind of fun sometimes because this song, like my next single coming out after this one, it's very directed towards one person. No one will know who that is because like I haven't put any other relationships online, but yeah, like this one is like about a couple different people.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love it. And I remember that coming out and I was like, oh Lord, everyone's going to be asking like, who is he? You know? But no, I mean, I love how honest you are. And I think it's super important. So one question that we got from our community is, how do you stay true? And I think we've covered a little bit of this, but how do you stay true to yourself when there's so much competition and comparison? Because I mean, look, everybody's trying to get a record label to sign them, or, competing for this spot for this gig, or like whatever. So how are you managing that now?
I think it's been a journey, and I'm not perfect, obviously. So I can't sit here and say that I don't compare myself to people sometimes, but I definitely think that I've learned through this business that comparison really is the thief of joy. That is a great line. That it's a great quote, because I'm compared to people every day. Like, I'm in meetings and people say like, "Oh yeah, she's a little mix between like a Tori Kelly and like she's kind of giving the Whitney vibe." Like they're constantly trying to tag me to somebody or something to compare me. And really, I would just say it goes back to really knowing who you are and your identity and your purpose, because my purpose is going to be different than Amanda's purpose. And we each have our own lane. And I've just seen that if I look into your lane or into your lane, then I'm not doing my purpose. And I actually told my friends that yesterday, that they asked me, we were just talking about like, they're like, "How can we pray for you?" And I was like, so that I don't get distracted, so that I'm not looking to my right or to my left at other people, at maybe like, a relationship I don't need to be in, whatever it is that's distracting me. I need to look forward on my purpose, because there's people that I need to impact, and I can't afford to compare myself, because then I'm not on my path. And I'll say this to whoever asked that, like, even if, your job's not in the public eye or whatever, and you work at whatever, McDonald's, like seriously, whatever job you have, whatever you're doing, if you work at a desk, if you work at a fast food, if you go to school, whatever, you have a purpose there. So there's nothing is purposeless. So if you focus on that and that you have a purpose, then it's easier to say, well, this is my purpose. My purpose is not what hers is going to be. And sometimes theirs might look more glitzy and glammy than yours, but yours is just as important as theirs. And so I always recommend this book. It's literally my heart and soul, but it's called A Purpose Driven Life. And I would just encourage you to read that, because I wake up every day and I really just go back to the source, and that's God, because he created me and he tells me who I am, what I need to do, how I need to act, like, and I love who he's made me to be. So I want to continue on that. So I would just say, if you know that purpose, it's so much easier when those comparison thoughts come in, or when you see somebody else doing better than you or whatever. I would just say to go back to your purpose and say, okay, why do I feel like this? And, how do I get back on track to know what my purpose in my life is?
Ooh, well, there's your answer. And it sounds like you have some really good friends. And that is one thing that I know is difficult, especially as an adult.
Yeah.
To like go find friends. Cause it's like, well, you could be friends with the people you work with. You could be friends with the people at your gym, or if you go to church or whatever, but it's like, where else do you find friends? It's the entire purpose of why I started my company. But I think it sounds like you have some really good friends. Have you met people through church and just like random stuff?
Well, I will say that I did not feel like I had a really solid group of friends until actually last July. I have great friends, but I didn't feel like I had girlfriends that were really pushing me in my purpose. I had great friends, and like I felt like, we had so much fun together and things like that, but I needed warriors that were beside me, that were fighting the same battle that I'm fighting, and that were concerned about the same things that I'm concerned about. And through a mutual friend, that she lived in London and then she moved back to LA. And the second she moved back to LA, she's like, Madison, I have some girls I need you to meet. And if I'm being honest with you, I prayed for that for a year and it didn't come. And it was really hard
That's so
because
hard.
all my friends were guys. Like I felt like my close friends,
Yeah.
my deep,
And
close
as a
heart.
girl, that's hard. You need
You
deep
need
girlfriends.
girlfriends.
You need girlfriends.
Yeah. And then it was like lines were blurred because the guy friends were like, okay, we're so close. Like, does she like me? And I'm like, no, like, I'm like,
No.
no, I just like want to be your friend. But then you can't really be super, super close, like single guys, if you're a single girl, because somebody's going to like
Something's gonna
somebody.
happen.
Somebody's going to want to date somebody, So anyway, I will say that my community, my girlfriends around me, oh my gosh, they'll straight up look at me and I'll be like, is this a dumb idea? And they'll say, yes, we love you, but it is a dumb idea. Or they'll say,
Good.
you're comparing yourself, or you're being hard on the way you look, or, whatever it is. And they love me, but they also will give me truth and push me to be better.
That's good. It is super hard. And I know that's a huge thing that I hear all the time. So if you are out there and you are like, dang, I need some friends. Well, first of all, there's plenty of communities out there for you, like Dallas Girl Gang. Or, maybe if you are the praying type, or even if you're not, like,
Yeah.
that's something you can pray for. It's crazy hard, and I totally get it. Everybody gets it. It's weird to be like, hi, I'm Amanda. I'm an adult. Do you want to be my friend? Like, what?
Yes.
But this has been so much fun. I could talk to you forever.
Right.
And I hope I could see you in the flesh soon. But
In the flesh.
You have a new single coming out, available for pre-save on Spotify, correct?
Yes, on all platforms.
All platforms.
Pre-save.
It's gonna be in the link in the show notes here, so you guys go pre-save it. It's a fantastic song. Again, one of the videos that she showed her friends on TikTok went viral. But tell us, when is it coming out?
It comes out March 9th.
March 9th, Lose to Love.
Yes, I'm so excited. If you're in a season where you feel like you just gave up something for something better, this is the perfect song for you. Because sometimes, the song is about losing something to get the best for you. And that could be in any situation. This is obviously love. Like talking about like breaking up with someone to find my person. But I think that if you just quit a job so that you can get a better job, whatever, it's like sometimes you have to lose something to get something better. So this song really resonates with me in all areas. And I feel like it will with you guys too.
It's going to be just the bomb. And you're just going to break the internet once again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Go follow Madison at Madison_Watkins. And yeah, she's super funny on TikTok and on all the things. And thank you so much for being on the show. Love and adore you. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you guys. I didn't know if you could cut it off or not.